Have you ever just looked at a group of people and thought, like, what on earth are they doing?
Yeah.
Like, maybe you're getting ready for a trip or working with people from different countries or even just scrolling through the news. You know,
Oh, for sure.
it feels like everyone's operating from this whole rule book that you just don't have.
Absolutely.
Well, in this deep dive, we're going to give you a framework to start making sense of it all.
And we're going to be looking at an excerpt from the work of Lloyd Kwast.
Oh,
And
yeah, Kwast.
he's got so much experience with this stuff, like teaching in Cameroon for years, deep into missions, intercultural studies.
Right, the real deal.
Yeah, it makes his perspective on culture so practical and grounded.
And the question he's tackling, it seems simple at first.
Yeah,
Like, what is a culture anyway? But that's exactly the kind of foundational question,
it really is.
that we need to sort out if we want to truly understand different groups of people.
100%, it's the key.
So that's the mission today.
And to kick things off, Kwast uses this really cool technique. He calls it the man from Mars.
Okay, a man from Mars.
So imagine trying to see human behavior, everything we do, as if you were totally new to it.
A fresh perspective.
Yeah, like an alien anthropologist landing on Earth, no preconceived ideas of what's normal or how things should be.
Stripping away all those assumptions that we don't even realize we have.
Exactly.
So to unpack this culture thing, Kwast says we should think of it in layers.
Layers, interesting.
Yeah, and we're going to go through them in this deep dive.
Okay, love that.
And it's such a useful model because it takes us beyond just like surface observations to a much deeper understanding of what's really going on.
Got it. So let's start with that outermost layer, the one that would probably hit our man from Mars first, behavior.
Behavior, okay.
It's simply what people do, the actions, the activities we can observe in a culture.
So give me an example.
Okay, Kwast uses this great one. Picture walking into a classroom for the very first time.
Okay, new experience.
Yeah, you see people going into this enclosed space, finding their seats, and then one person, maybe dressed a bit differently, goes to the front, starts talking in a certain way. The others are quiet and listening.
I see. So our man from Mars is probably pretty confused.
Oh, totally. You'd have a million questions.
Yeah, like what?
Why this room? Why is the speaker dressed like that? Why is everyone else sitting quietly?
Right.
These observations, that's how we start to understand a culture.
So it's like, if you ask those people why they're doing all this,
Exactly.
they might have all sorts of explanations.
Yeah, or they might just shrug and say, that's just how we do things here.
Which is such a simple statement, but so revealing.
Right. Kwast quotes these missionary anthropologists who call culture the patterned way of doing things.
Interesting.
It's like the glue that binds a group, giving them a shared identity, a feeling of continuity.
That sense of this is how it's always been.
Exactly. And it's most obvious in our behavior, in the things we do over and over again.
Behavior is the visible evidence of culture. But our man from Mars, being a curious fellow.
And let's be honest, we're curious too.
Yeah, totally.
We wouldn't stop at just seeing what people do.
We want to know why.
Exactly why these specific behaviors, and that takes us to the next layer.
Okay, what's underneath behavior?
Values, they're the choices a society makes about what's good, beneficial, the best way to do things.
So it's not just what they do, it's what they think is right.
Precisely.
Hmm.
Think back to Kwast's classroom. The students chose studying over, say, working or hanging out.
So there's a value placed on education.
Exactly. Or how about driving your own car versus taking public transport?
Yeah.
That might show a value on individual freedom, convenience.
Interesting. Or even just someone sticking to their schedule really tightly.
That could be about valuing efficiency, punctuality.
Okay, let's start and get it.
Kwast says values are like preset decisions a culture makes over time,
Makes sense.
Like when faced with a choice, this is what we usually go for.
Right, the default.
And then those values, they guide how people behave, what they think they should do to fit in.
Okay, so we observe the behavior.
And
underneath are the values driving those actions.
Yep, but where do those values come from in the first place? They don't just appear out of thin air, right?
Good point. What's the next layer down?
Beliefs. This is about the shared understandings, the assumptions within a culture.
Like a common ground of what they hold to be true.
Exactly. They're answering the question, what is true? What's real? How does the world work? All that.
So it's connected, right? Like if you believe knowledge and critical thinking are important,
right,
that fuels a high value on education, which leads to people actually going to school and all that.
Totally. It's a natural progression.
It all fits together.
Kwast says culture at this level, it's like learned and shared ways of perceiving, or a shared cognitive orientation.
That's a mouthful.
But it basically means how a group interprets information, understands cause and effect.
Their shared lens for seeing the world.
Precisely. And here's a really interesting point Kwast makes.
Okay, hit me with it.
You might see people from the same culture behaving similarly, even saying they value the same things.
Okay, I've noticed that.
But when you dig deeper into their core beliefs, their understanding of what's true...
They could be totally different.
Right. Kwast calls this the difference between operating beliefs and theoretical beliefs.
Operating versus theoretical.
So operating beliefs are the ones that actually drive your actions, shape your behavior every day.
The real deal.
Yeah. And then you've got theoretical beliefs, the official doctrines or principles, you know?
The stuff they might say they believe.
But maybe it doesn't really impact how they actually live their lives.
So you could have two people, both super punctual, always on time.
Yeah, good example.
Similar behavior, valuing punctuality.
Right.
But one might be doing it out of respect for other people's time.
While the other just sees it as the most efficient way to work.
Same action, different reasons.
Exactly. And this shows how complex culture can be, even within a group that seems pretty similar on the surface.
So we can't just look at actions and what people say they believe.
Nope.
We got to go deeper.
To those unspoken beliefs that are the real foundation for their values.
Okay, and all this leads us to the core, the deepest level of culture.
The worldview. This is where we tackle the biggest questions about existence itself.
The ultimate whys.
Exactly. Questions like, who are we? Where did we come from? What's real? How does time work? What gives life meaning?
Oof. Those are some heavy questions.
Deep stuff, right? And Kwast says every culture has a set of assumed answers to these questions.
Even if they're not consciously aware of it.
Exactly. And those assumptions, even if they're hidden, they shape every other part of the culture.
The behavior, the values, the beliefs, it all flows from that worldview.
It's the foundation.
Makes sense why you might see inconsistencies in people's beliefs, right?
Totally.
If their worldview, their understanding of reality stays the same,
right,
new ideas might not change their values or how they act.
The worldview is too powerful, it filters everything.
So if you're trying to understand another culture...
or even try to create change.
Yeah, if you don't consider their worldview...
you might be missing the bigger picture.
Treating the symptoms instead of the root cause.
Exactly. Kwast is really big on this, especially for folks working in intercultural communication missions.
He's saying worldview is crucial for understanding and creating lasting change.
Couldn't agree more.
Now, Kwast admits this model, the 4 layers, it's a simplification.
Of course, culture is super complex.
But he says that simplicity is what makes it so useful.
It's a starting point, a framework.
Exactly, a way to begin understanding.
And in the excerpt, he gives us some great questions to think about.
Oh yeah, what are those?
Well, first, he asks us about the relationships between the layers, how they influence each other.
Because it's not just a straight line down. Right, they all affect each other.
Exactly. It's dynamic. And then he also asks us to think about how this model can be used practically.
Like for communication, missions, all that.
Right. Really good points to ponder if you want to dive deeper.
So let's recap for our listeners. We've gone deep into Kwast's layered model of culture.
A deep dive indeed.
We started with behavior, what we see people doing.
The most visible layer.
Then values, what they think is good or best, the reasons behind those actions.
And deeper still, beliefs, the shared understanding of what's true.
And at the very core, the worldview, the foundation of it all, the unspoken assumptions about reality.
And remember that man from Mars idea, looking at everything with fresh eyes.
That's key.
So we hope this model gives you that framework we talked about at the beginning.
A way to start making sense of it all.
Exactly. By recognizing these different layers, you can understand any culture with more depth.
Moving beyond just the surface to the whys.
What drives their actions, what truth they're based on, what they fundamentally believe about reality.
That's powerful stuff. It can help us communicate better, build relationships.
Navigate our crazy, interconnected world.
Absolutely. So as you go about your day, interacting with people, watching the news.
Just observing the world around you.
Think about these layers.
They're everywhere.
And here's a final thought for you.
Shoot.
What are your unspoken assumptions about reality?
Whoa.
The ones that shape your behavior, your decisions.
Deep.
It's an interesting exercise to really look at our own cultural programming.
It really is.
Food for thought.
Definitely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll see you next time.
Looking forward to it.